Welcome to Vantage Point. I'm Marcia Boyles, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, Kathleen Taylor. Good morning, Kathleen.
Hi.
And let's go on to say that you are you are a licensed clinical social worker, and you are the clinical social worker at the medical center. We'll talk much more about that position and your responsibilities as this program goes on. Kathleen, we decided some weeks ago in discussing this program that this was a pivotal time in terms of picking topics going forward for the program.
Correct. Yep.
And we'll share some of our thoughts on that as we go along here this morning. But particularly we picked the topic of emotional health. And because you are now the primary provider of emotional health, mental health services at the medical center and have been for more than a year, we decided to really emphasize that topic today and again, shades of it going forward. So let's start by you telling us why you think emotional health, and also why you call it emotional health,
Right.
Why you think emotional health is important.
Right. Well, probably the first thing I want to just talk about a little bit is why I think it's a good idea to start bringing up topics related to emotional health, mental health, because I'm not quite clear on what people know or think about it. So since our goal is always to stimulate conversation and thought on particular topics, the whole idea of how people feel about their life and how people respond to their life, especially as their life situations might change, is I think something that can be really important for our residents to think about more.
You know, you and I have talked in the past about the fact that our generations here at Green Spring mostly did not use mental health services. You know, our mothers all told us that you kept secrets in the family, and you simply didn't discuss most things that were emotional based. I was struck yesterday in watching some of the 75th commemoration of Normandy invasion by some of the veterans who were interviewed, who said things like, every night I revisited that Normandy invasion, every single night of my life. And I thought, my gosh, can you imagine flashbacks for 75 years?
Yeah.
So I think we simply didn't use mental health services. There was, in some cases, I think, almost a stigma attached to the idea. And also, I think we had perceptions that it would go on forever. If you started it, 20 years from now, you'd still be doing therapy.
Yeah, it's like psychoanalysis that
Yes.
you do it every day for all of your life.
So there are a lot of myths around it, and I think, we're all many of us are fairly ignorant about how you do it and how often you do it, and just all of it,
the above,
the whole
right.
package. So
Right.
yes, I should have said when we started this program that this Vantage Point is a discussion program, and we have purposely over the years, 3 years that we've been in existence, picked topics we think are particularly relevant to our Green Spring residents. And normally we do have guests, both staff and residents, but today we're just chatting between the two of us.
Yeah, this is like the first show about this topic. So
It
we'll have
is.
guests going forward
Yes.
and pick other things to talk about, related things. But yeah, to your point, that's sort of why I chose emotional wellness or emotional health as the topic, as opposed to mental health. And the reason that I sort of like that is, I think that there are really sort of three realms of health. One is the physical realm, one is the mental health realm, and one is, for me, the emotional health.
All right, you're differentiating.
And I'm differentiating. And especially they all sort of overlap too. So
Well, they certainly have an impact on each other, don't they?
absolutely, and certainly with mental health and emotional health, that's particularly true. But the reason I like emotional health is for some of the reasons that you noted, that people might kind of veer away from the idea of counseling or therapy, because mental health a lot of time perhaps the idea connotes mental illness.
Yes.
And kind of a medical model approach that you have, something wrong with you and that you need to be treated for it.
Yes.
And that kind of ends up putting first of all, it makes you feel like, if you feel like there's something wrong with you, then that doesn't feel well. That doesn't feel good.
Right.
And a lot of times, as you mentioned as well, with the generation that lives at Greenspring, our residents, the whole idea of being able to do things on your own, the whole idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, that
Right.
that self-reliance is really a core value for our residents.
Yes.
So I think that I worry that if you see this as a illness or a failure in some kind of way, that might cause people to not want to have treatment, not want to have therapy, not want to go into counseling. So I just really want to, broaden the idea of what therapy or counseling looks like. And for me, emotional health is very strength-based. It's about resiliency, it's about positivity, it's about being able to work with a person to change the way that they react to situations that will allow them to feel more satisfied with their life.
All right. Change the way they react to situations and find more happiness in their lives.
Satisfaction.
All right.
Yep.
As opposed to, I have a serious mental illness, that schizophrenia or something of that sort.
Yeah, I think just the idea, whatever, there's lots of diagnoses,
Right.
for mental illness, mental health, and they're based on certain symptoms
Right.
that people might
Right.
present with. And they're valid, they're very valid, depression, anxiety, all of those problems come with symptoms. But again, I want to avoid the idea that, a person is a symptom. A person is whole, and a person has, all kinds of different abilities and capabilities to be able to respond and adjust to situations in their life. And some of them can, if you are thinking or reacting in ways that are not necessarily constructive for your well-being, then you're being able to adjust those is going to equate with better life satisfaction.
All right. I think, Kathleen, there's no question about the fact that all of us face challenges, difficulties at various stages in our lives, and often our thinking becomes very circular. We get stuck. And are those the kinds of situations that you are suggesting we would benefit from talking about them with you?
Yeah, I think that that's a perfect example, because it really has to do with trying to help that person to find out sort of what their thoughts are that are maybe creating barriers or problems, and also what their emotional reaction is. So, for example, if a person's starting to feel really stressed out, anxious, you're trying to work with them to go, what thoughts are in their head that are contributing to that feeling. I mean, we carry with us all of these, I call them internalized shoulds. I should be this way, and this starts like when a person's really, really young.
And I think our generations probably had more shoulds than the more recent generations.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
So, what is it? I should be self-reliant, for example.
I should keep a perfect house.
I should keep a perfect house. I should, I should be able to deal with this problem on my own.
Yes. Yes.
And as that way of thinking doesn't exactly work, people can sometimes just get locked into that, and they're not really able to see past it. So that's sort of where the other person, the professional person, can come in, because they can help them to kind of, we use silly terms like unpack or peel the onion on those thoughts that are creating emotional reactions and behaviors that are getting in the way of that person being able to be as happy and contented and satisfied with their life as they might otherwise be.
Well, I think that puts it very simply and directly. We can certainly make ourselves miserable sometimes.
We can.
And I think our generations perhaps are better at that than some of the generations coming up.
No. I don't agree with that.
Oh, don't you? All right.
I sort of think everybody's equally good at that.
Oh, do you? You don't think it's a
Sure.
generational thing?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Yeah, I think it's just we all can get stuck.
Yeah,
we all can, sort of get locked into a way of thinking or reacting. And if you're not, the reason that you get stuck is you're really not aware of what you're thinking or what you're feeling or what you're reacting to. And that's, again, where that other person comes in, because it's creating that awareness. That's what's going on.
Yes, I can imagine that there are times when that is liberating, to be able to understand what it is that is keeping you from moving on.
Moving forward, yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times it is really a pretty significant light bulb moment when it's like,
I can believe that.
That's what I'm doing. And sometimes it's harder than others to kind of break through those patterns of behavior and thinking. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it's the awareness comes pretty quickly and people can just start to move forward. But people are multi-layered, so a lot of times it's just not one thing, one thought, one behavior. You have to keep working.
Tell me, what is the usual pattern for people who come in to talk to you? Is it, how often do you do it, and how long does it tend to last?
Right. Well, it's different for everybody.
Of course.
It's absolutely just different for everybody. Some people come in, and I'm happy when they do this, because it means that they understand that they're having some kind of distress.
So people come in knowing that they're having some distress and unhappiness, and
that's
the impetus.
The ideal, is that people understand that there's something going on. But I think my point is that you don't really have to understand. You don't have to diagnose yourself, for example. You don't necessarily have to come in and say, I know I'm depressed, I know I'm anxious. It's really just that whole idea of, how does your life feel? Do you feel like, you have good quality of life? You feel like you're struggling? Are you having a lot of just life hitting you in your face that you really just can't adjust to? You feel like you're a little out of control or overwhelmed? Just anything that just doesn't feel exactly right for you, I think is a reason to come into a situation where you could work that through with another person, with a professional. And I think that, for me, that's like, that kind of normalizes the experience a lot, because if you start to think about mental health, mental illness, it has to be a big thing.
Yes.
It has to be a huge thing. And that would be the only reason where you would go, into a therapy relationship. But instead, it's really about just kind of normal things that can get to be too much sometimes, and you find that you just aren't quite able to cope with them in the way that you would like to. So as a result,
that does normalize it.
Yeah.
Because all of us have at various times in our lives had that exact feeling.
Right.
This is just really more than I can cope with.
Right. And if you've used all your normal techniques for being able to, strategies for being able to sort things out and make things better, and you sort of hit that wall, then that's the time. And it can be that it's very situational. I have people that come for very specific situations that we work things through, within a couple of months. And then there are people that are bringing with them maybe more lifelong patterns that have just become more and more difficult for them over time, and that might take a lot longer. And some people see me once a week for a while and then start to spread things out, and then eventually a month, and then they graduate. Or some people like to stay in more permanent contact to kind of recalibrate periodically.
So come every couple of weeks or every month?
Every couple of weeks, every month, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever works for the person. And I guess I should probably point out at this point, because some people do ask, is that Medicare and the private insurances between your primary and your secondary are really, they can't limit the amount of mental health services.
Oh, they cannot.
No.
So there is no top level on this.
Right.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's certainly.
Yeah. So there's no.
And do they pay the entire fee?
If you have a primary and a secondary, that's not like an HMO, like a Kaiser that has their own provider network.
Right.
Yes.
All right, that's terrific. You also, when we talked a bit about this, Kathleen, you talked about the fact that each person that you are seeing, you develop a relationship. And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, because that's so important to me. I think that the two things that I offer. One is that I have a lot of training, that I have a lot of tricks of the trade that can help people sometimes break through. Have that light bulb moment. That's my whole goal, is to kind of be able to help people to turn on that light, but also then to start helping them to develop tools that they can use to be in situations where things might be difficult, and then they will walk away with those tools. That is something that they will always have to be able to.
That is just critical. So you're really talking about helping them self-help.
I'm helping them to be as self-reliant and resilient as they want to be. I think another thing that people sort of feel happens in therapy is that I have all the answers.
Right.
That they're coming to me and I'm going to tell them what to do and everything is going to be fine. Well, no, you don't get off that easy. It really is your responsibility, and I'm just sort of creating a path, clearing the path, and then we're going to walk down that path together to be able to find out what you need to find and discover that you're going to be able to carry with you down the rest of your journey.
I like that. I like the imagery of that.
Yeah.
All right, so that you definitely are doing it together.
It's a partnership, and then as to what you were saying about the relationship is key, because we are doing it together, and so part of the initial part of our work together is really just working on that relationship and helping people to get a comfort level with talking about your feelings. Some people are less comfortable about that, for sure. So being able to help people to feel comfortable being open and honest and sharing maybe some private secrets that they maybe hadn't ever talked about before. And so the relationship is key. And I think that the other thing, because of the idea that I focus so strongly on and believe so strongly in the strength and resiliency of the human spirit, that I feel that sometimes when people are starting to feel kind of helpless or hopeless, that I can share my faith, my belief in them, and that will help pull them up and be able to see that there is hope, that there's potential there, because there is.
Well, that's certainly nicely said, and I can imagine that you would do that well.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Kathleen, this is all probably news to a lot of people in terms of when they might appropriately try to make an appointment with you. They just call the medical center, I assume?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Anything else you want to say? And then let's turn to the kinds of topics that we may want to pursue going forward.
Yeah. No, I think I've said what I would like to say for sure. Yeah, the topics going forward. I think that the idea that we talk a lot about, different areas of potential concern for our residents. I mean, certainly the physical health, and also I think we talk a lot about cognition.
We have
brain health. That sort of thing.
What have been some of your past favorite shows?
Well, I like the ones that sort of like stir the pot a little bit,
A little edgy.
A little edgy. Yeah. I know that we had a great response to the hashtag #MeToo
We did.
show.
We did. That was a fun show to do.
That was really fun. Yeah.
It was. We should say that I surveyed everybody I knew to tell me their stories. Nobody wanted to appear with us to tell their stories,
right.
But we had lots of resident stories.
Yeah, and it has also taken on a life of its own on YouTube, I think.
It definitely has. We've had, I don't know, 80 or 90 hits, I think, on YouTube last time I checked.
Yeah. So we like to know that. I think we like to know that we're, sort of hitting a point of interest for our residents whenever we can.
Absolutely.
I like it when I come out of a show and people stop me and go, "Oh, I saw the show."
Right. Right. I learned something.
Yeah.
Let me tell you my experience.
Yeah. So that's that's sort of what we're looking for again today, because
Yes.
going forward, talking about emotional health, talking about, I feel like, people's lives are changing as they get older. Things are happening.
The world is certainly changing. We're very aware of that.
And personal changes, things that are happening in your life that you have to adapt to. And so what I think about that is that, I think a lot of things about that, but one of the things I think about that is, all of the challenges of our lives can get hard, can get complicated. So we have to be able to see, the payoff. If I'm going to get up every morning and, live my life, what's the payoff? What do I get from that? And the answer hopefully is a sense of well-being, a sense of purpose and meaning, a sense of happiness.
Yes.
Broadly speaking. Now, what happiness means, what life satisfaction means, what well-being means, it's different for everybody. So I think that that's what we were talking about being able to explore, is to talk about why are these things important to us, and what are some of the ways that people see those different topics.
Well, and certainly at each stage and age of our lives, those things have changed. And this is a new one.
Right.
Many of us have very few models. Our parents or grandparents may not have lived with us or may not have lived that long. And so we haven't seen models, many of us.
That's
and
true.
I think there's greater uncertainty in some ways about aging. And of course, we're all living so much longer than our parents and grandparents.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody. It was like she was talking about that expectation that her mom had died when she was 82 or something. So that's sort of where she thought she was going to go.
I think many of us did.
And I said it's just like somebody sort of moved the finish line, right?
Right.
Like you're running the race, and then all of a sudden you get there, and it's like, oh no, you have like 10 more miles.
Not the finish.
Yeah,
that's right.
So then you have to recalibrate.
Yes, you do.
And I think that everybody, is faced with that, and I think that people in general do a great job.
Yes, I agree.
But I think it's a great idea to think about it a little bit more. I think it's where I believe really strongly in awareness. That if you're gonna get that 10 extra years, how are you gonna make the most of it?
Yes, exactly, and be happy be happy as you're doing it.
Well, at least feel like you're getting the most out of it. Sometimes that can be just, not necessarily happy, but just,
Well, I'm not talking about dancing jigs in the hallway.
But again, see, that's a conversation. What does happiness mean?
Right. Right.
Maybe for somebody it does mean dancing jigs. Other people it looks different.
Now that I'm walking, the jigs are my next goal.
Absolutely. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
So I think that I hope that we can continue to have this conversation around specific topics.
Well, a couple of them that you and I had been thinking about. We've given 2 legacy forums, you and I, over the past 5 years, and that I think has been very valuable. We found it includes the last one included genealogy, but also ethical wills, writing ethical wills, and writing memoirs, as well as oral traditions. And as you and I have discussed, I think all of those reliving the past, putting it into a context often,
Right.
sometimes for the first time.
Right.
Is
Oh,
helpful.
absolutely. Personal narrative, how you create your personal narrative
Yes.
is so important to emotional health. So I think that's a topic that we could just, really expand on. And legacy is really about, certainly personal narrative, but also purpose and meaning. What was the meaning, is the meaning of your life? What was the purpose, is the purpose of your life? How does that play out? What do you want to pass on? What is the knowledge about life that you want to pass on? So yeah, I'm getting excited just talking about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so too. That is a topic that, since I teach memoirs, memoir writing.
Oh yeah, writing is
that I have found has been extremely helpful for folks, including myself. I think it has really worked. Now, a couple of the other topics that we have talked about: depression, anxiety.
Yep.
Were there others that you can think of off the top of your head?
I think that, really kind of the 2 that people may struggle with the most are some form of depression, sadness, or anxiety, stress reaction kind of thing, And I think I'm probably going to, since I'm talking emotional health, going to want to frame those, less in a diagnostic, symptom-based way and more just on the idea of, how we look at that in terms of our life and our response to life.
All right, that would certainly make sense. Yes, you're not getting into the clinical symptomology.
No.
Kinds of things.
Yeah.
No, I think they would be very helpful, Kathleen.
I think so, because I think people do have, sadness.
We're faced with a good deal of loss in aging.
Well,
of various sorts, for one thing.
Multiple different reasons. So anyhow, yeah, we have lots of topics that we can get into, but for right now, they are waving at me that we have to stop.
They're telling you it's time for your announcements.
Yeah.
I think the one last thing that we might add here is that we don't intend to be totally exclusive in terms of just focusing on emotional health. That if other topics of relevance come up, we'll certainly discuss those as well.
We'll go off on all kinds of tangents, I'm sure.
Edgy and not.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Yeah.